fantastic beginning!
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Hey, a movie! Yeah, we're gonna be a movie!
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that ends for us so happily. Hey, a movie! We can watch it all develop. Starring everybody!
And me! We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in! We're gonna start right here!
Tonight on Hey a Movie, we review 1994's Angels in the Outfield, starring Danny Glover, a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Christopher Lloyd.
Oh, good.
There'll be mystery and catastrophe, but it's all in fun. You pay no money, wait and see.
Hey, a movie! Is there any way to stop it? Starring everybody!
Everybody, everybody, and me.
Welcome to Hey a Movie, the podcast where two Christians review Hollywood movies and discuss if their spiritual themes line up with biblical truth. I'm Chris Bastido.
And I'm Martin Glenn.
And hey, we managed to do that intro without re-recording it or you being muted. So that's a win for us.
I know. It's like, first time for everything, I suppose. And I do want to say that that multiplicity poster is the clearest indication we've had so far that our headshots are done in drastically different lighting. Dark light, dark light. And I'm not used to being the dark one in anything, so it's kind of weird.
You really never are.
I know, I never am. It's
Martin,
just fascinating.
Yeah, Martin's not just white, folks. He's clear.
I'm not white. I'm polka dotted.
He's an opaque American.
I'm spotted. I am polka dotted. I have constellations on my arm. Look at that. Wow, that's grossly incompetent. All right.
Yeah, we that. All right. Well, tonight on Hey a Movie, we are going to review 1994's Angels in the Outfield. Martin, would you give us a synopsis, please?
So, the Angels in the Outfield is a fun American family movie about a child who desperately wants to have a father who loves him and cares for him and is devoted to him, and is instead adopted by a baseball team.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that was half of my dream growing up.
I know. I was like, oh darn, but it's.
I mean, I had the first part, but the second part would have been awesome.
Except it's Anaheim, so.
Yeah. So interestingly, even though this is this won't come out until well after, today was Game 1 of the World Series. And, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to make a very bold prediction. I think the team in the blue hats is going to win.
Uh-huh. That's very astute of you.
Yes, the team in the blue hats. I have a feeling the team in the blue hats are going to win. But seriously, though, Martin, as a fan of the New York, not the Mets, there is something in your history, in your favorite team's history here that has never happened before, because the great Don Mattingly is finally at a World Series as a manager, but he's finally a participant in the World Series.
I didn't realize. You see, this is what happens when I'm not paying attention to baseball as much as I used to. I didn't know that. But
kids will do that to you. Yeah, he's actually the manager of the team with the blue hats. So,
yeah, I actually don't know who he's managing. Is it the Blue Jays or the Dodgers?
It's the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Let's kick it off.
I was going to guess Blue Jays because it's still the AL, but
right. Well, I'd make a joke about how he couldn't manage without the DH, but now both leagues have it. Which
now both leagues have a DH. Yeah, much to your chagrin, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It should have been outlawed years ago, along with artificial
Mhm.
turf. So, Martin, what is your history with this movie?
This movie is a movie I saw when I was young. I thought it was fun. I don't really have that much of a history in it, but it is a film that I kind of look back on and go, whoa, a movie that's actually about Christianity in a positive way.
Right.
Amazing. And like at
More,
the time when the movie
let's
came
be
out,
honest.
I didn't really.
It's more actually about theism.
Yeah, but it is like I'll say it's about Christianity. It says God and angels. Um, like that could include Jews and maybe Mormons, but um, we are
I'm
still
pretty
definitely
sure,
talking about Abrahamic faiths here, at the
yes,
very least.
Abrahamic faiths for sure. I do believe Muslims also believe in angels, but I
They
don't
have
know.
angelic beings. I don't know whether or not they would call them angels.
Hmm.
But there are they do have beings that fit in that slot.
Yes.
Yes. So
Well, this movie did come out during a period in our childhood where sports movies about kids were very popular, but not just sports movies about kids. Sports movies with kids in an adult professional setting. We're not talking about Bad News Bears, Mighty Ducks, like those are youth sports. Little
there were
Giants.
three.
There was at least 3 baseball movies that met that criteria. There was Rookie of the Year, there was
Criteria.
Little Big League, which
Yes.
I horribly underrated just for the play-by-play guys' stats.
Yeah.
Strike one. Oh, boy, he sure looked bad swinging at that pitch. Last year, though, he was 6th in the American League at hitting right-handers he was facing for the first time after the 7th inning at home. So that's something to keep in mind. An interesting side note, that's the 14th one-run game for the Tigers already this year. Tops for any team north of the Mason-Dixon line whose home games are not played in a dome.
That joke was
Actually, to
brilliant.
be honest, I actually think that Little Big League is the best out of the 3. Just as a baseball movie, and it certainly is more plausible than Rookie of the Year.
As a baseball movie, yes. And Little Big League also had the best. I watched a video recently, and it the whoever the video was saying that had the best baseball in it. And
Yeah.
I would, having paid attention, I'd have to agree. Most of all of the players had some kind of high level baseball experience. The least experienced player on the team was Timothy Busfields, the first baseman who ends up dating the mom. He was the least experienced. He played Division I college baseball. Everyone
That's why they
else
put him
who
on first
played a
base anyway.
baseball player was, yeah, probably. But yeah, everyone else actually were baseball players who ended up becoming who tried out to be baseball players, but also had some interest in acting, including the guy who played Dawson in A Few Good Men. He
Sorry,
played ball. He played like minor league ball for several years. And then I can't remember if that movie or A Few Good Men was his debut. I know in A Few Good Men he got the role because they kept casting Pete. He was doing some kind of behind the camera work, and the director kept saying, "No, this guy doesn't look right. I need somebody who looks like," and I can't remember the man's name, but they wanted somebody who carried himself like. I'm trying to find him right now. Find his name.
Well,
No
the director
success.
was
But the
Rob
guy who
Reiner.
played Dawson.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was
and
Reiner
he was
or if
literally
it was
walking by as
the
like
guy who
Rob
wrote
Reiner
it.
said it. He goes like, "I want someone that looks like him. Can you act?" And Dawson had never done it before, so we know that Few Good Men predates Little Big League. And also
It
there's
does,
another
and
actor
it
in
was
it.
2 years earlier, so it must have been that.
Yeah. And the actor that plays the pitcher, he went on to have his own TV show called The Single Guy. I don't know if you know that, but he was a leading man in his own
In
sitcom.
Okay. Okay, so let's actually talk about the movie we're here to talk about. So
I know, right?
yeah, I remember. Yeah, I saw Angels in the Outfield in that same period of time when Rookie of the Year and Little Big League and all these movies were coming out. At
Mhm.
that point in my life, I just was baseball crazy. I don't know why I'm using past tense. I still am. I still
Yeah, I
love the
know.
game. I just
Mhm.
am an adult with bills to pay and children, and I can't watch. I can't do what I did when I was in my early 20s and single and went through one season where I didn't miss an inning, although I
Yeah.
didn't watch them all live. I didn't watch them all live. I used to, you remember, I was the
Yeah, you
guy who
had
would
the
DVR the games.
mhm.
Yeah,
The guy. Do you
I would
realize how
DVR
many
the
guys do you
games.
do that? Like, there's a lot
That's
of guys
true.
do that.
Well, I'm
But
saying I was
I
that
didn't
guy.
see, like, for me, baseball is a game that just reminds me of my father. And
Mm-hmm.
I love baseball and I love the Yankees because my dad loved the Yankees. And I enjoy baseball movies. I enjoy baseball games. However, um, I don't really follow, which is unfortunate for me. As much as I enjoy it, I'm just not a stats guy. So I'm not into it as much as like Chris is, but I do still love the game. It is probably the game. It's my favorite game to watch.
Well,
And also my sons have
mhm.
now said the same things. They have told me, both of them, their favorite game to play is soccer and their favorite game to watch is baseball. So halfway there.
I don't even know what I'm watching when I watch soccer. Yep, halfway there. Well, yeah,
Yes.
I don't watch baseball like I used to. I started subscribing to the radio ticket. So on the weekends, I could listen to the games, especially when we lived in New York. Remember, kids swimming all day. I could put the game on the speaker, and so I could listen to the radio cast. So that was nice. Okay. Well, any other couple other things I just want to mention about this movie real quick, because there are some actors in this movie who weren't famous yet, but became famous after the fact.
Like
Matthew
Tony Danza.
McConaughey plays one of the outfielders in his very early
And
days. Tony Danza was already famous at that
I
point.
know he was. I was kidding. I
Obviously,
was kidding.
Christopher Lloyd,
But
Danny
Adrian
Glover was
Brody,
famous.
he was not famous yet.
Yeah,
And he's also in it.
yeah. Who is he? Yep, he was Hemmerling. Yep, and Neil McDonough. Neil McDonough, who is not somebody you might know by name, but you would know him by face because he's in a lot of stuff. But the biggest breakout star has to be.
He was in The Shift, and he was also the best car commercial I've ever seen in my life. Yeah,
he played the
and he's
second
also a passionate
captain.
Christian. He's also a passionate Christian, and
is
he got blacklisted because he wasn't willing to kiss anyone on screen.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Credit to him for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Kirk Cameron did that for the ending of Fireproof, which to me raises the question because the actress who played his wife was so, I don't know, high school drama club in her performance that I kept thinking, well, gee, where could we find another actress who has some concept of what it's like to be married to Kirk Cameron and who Kirk Cameron would be willing to kiss at the ending and not have to have a stunt double? Chelsea Noble Cameron, his wife, should have played the role. She's a far better actress. She may not have wanted it. That's fair. So, but the most
they had kids at the time, didn't they? Didn't they have young kids at the time?
I'm fairly sure they still have kids.
No, I mean like young kids.
I have no idea. I don't follow his life that closely. I know they have children. I think the one actor who you have to go back and look and say, oh yeah, it's him. Roger, the main character, was played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, like, when like I rewatched this, I'm like, is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Holy cow!
Yep, that was a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing Roger.
Character. Also, the actor that plays, I forget the character's name, but the assistant who watches over them at the games. That actor, I don't know. I don't know his. I don't know the actor's name either, but he's in a ton. Hold on, I have IMDb up like right here. I can just look his name up.
There you
but
go.
But he's in a ton of stuff too. You can keep talking while I'm like, there it is. Taylor Negron.
Mm-hmm. Those
The
guys.
the character's name was David Montague.
David, yep. Poor
David,
guy.
Yeah. I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Felt so bad for him.
Yeah,
I really did.
At first, you see him. Oh, this is going to be the villain who's going to turn on him. But no, he just softens as the movie goes on.
No, the villain was the jerk in the booth.
Yeah, he's a well-known actor too. He's in who is that? Is that J.O. Sanders? I think.
Yep, that's J.O. Sanders. He's been in a million things too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we go too far off this trail, let's start talking about the actual spiritual themes, because that's why we're here.
Yep.
So at the beginning of the movie, Roger's prayer, and I thought about inserting it, but it was too long to get under fair use time limits. But he said the first thing he says to God is, I really want a family. And then he says to his dad, my dad says, we'll only be a family again if the angels win the pennant. So can maybe you help them win a little? First of all, that's not what the dad said. Not really, but I understand why a little kid hears it that way.
That's how kids are.
Yeah, what the dad was basically saying was the equivalent of when pigs fly. And he thought the Angels winning the pennant was about as likely.
He also, he also says maybe. I think doesn't he say like maybe when the Angels win on the pennant?
Yeah,
yeah.
And the interesting, I went on I think it was a Reddit or something. I was just looking to find some discussions on it, and somebody said, "Boy, what a lousy father! He should have made good on that promise or something." I'm thinking, first of all, suggesting you're surprised he's a lousy father. His child is in foster care,
and he's alive,
and he's alive.
Walk.
Right, exactly. I mean, if your children are in foster care and you're alive, clearly you're a lousy parent. Yeah. And his mother, Roger's mother died, they said. Okay, right. So she's off the hook, but he's not.
Well, basically, he doesn't think he can raise him without her. So he's mourning for her in a very selfish and I usually tell people that you can't shame people for the way that they mourn, and that is true. You can't really shame people. Like, everyone mourns their own way. However, that doesn't mean you get to abandon your child. There are right. limits to that principle, and abandoning your child will be one of them.
That's absolutely one of them. It's one thing. Like, it's one thing to take time. Yeah.
If a parent is obligated to fulfill every promise that a child thinks you promised, like, you ought to fulfill the promises you actually make. But if you think that parent is obligated to fulfill every promise a child imagines you making, then your child is going to run your life, and that is not how you're supposed to run their lives, at least until they are teenagers at the very least. By then you're supposed to give some
you slowly take the ease off on the reins. I was in a different conversation I forget what the topic was. It was a biblical conversation, but I was saying, as your children mature, obviously you take the reins off right now. Obviously, my youngest is not allowed to run out, not allowed to cross the street alone. He's 3.
Yeah.
His 10-year-old sister is allowed to cross the street by herself.
He's
Why?
not 3.
Because she's not 3. She knows about cars. She knows to look both ways. She's tall enough to be seen over a typical car. There's a million reasons why. But yeah, I agree with you.
But one of the points I was really working towards is that what bothers me the most about that comment is that you actually think that breaking a promise is the thing that makes him a lousy father. Like,
well,
what is wrong with you?
Okay, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that the type of person who has time to get into a multiple response thread on the internet about angels in the outfield probably doesn't have children, because to have time to get into that is insane.
Yeah, I was involved in a lot more debates online before I had kids and a church.
Yes. And even when I occasionally get into them now, they're generally a little bit more important.
Yeah, it's I mean, this is one of my great regrets about what's happening with C right now, because I really want to be more involved, but I just don't have the time. I just don't have the ability. I barely have the ability to do this. And even then I'm pushing it.
The only reason I make time for this is the only way we get to hang out once a week.
Pretty much. Yeah, and it's the main reason why my wife says, "Oh, sure, go ahead."
Exactly. Well, give her my best and tell her thank you.
Actually thank Marty the most. But
okay, we'll go into that later. So let's get into some discussion questions. So the first question I have is, does God actually answer? I think we both agree God answers prayers, but does God answer what some might see as a trivial prayer, such as, let my baseball team do well? Now, obviously, this prayer had more to it than that, but
especially in its fulfillment.
In its fulfillment, yes. And that is, the thing is, God could have answered the main crux of his prayer without that.
Yeah. But he was touching Danny Glover's life, Tony Dance's life, also to some degree the life of the other baseball
JP
players, but
but also JP.
Right. And also setting the two boys up to be with Danny Glover, which there's no way that would have happened otherwise. He was using Roger's prayer to set a lot of things up that he wanted to accomplish. And not only that, but Roger's prayer was not a prayer of, I want my baseball team to do well. It's, I want a family, and I think this is the way to get it done. And God goes, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. Sure, because I can.
Yeah.
And that's extremely believable in my mind. But does it make sense that God answers trivial prayers? First of all, I think that the idea of God answering prayers about who wins a sports team is very iffy, because everybody's praying about everyone's team. And you can't just simply say, oh, we won because I prayed the hardest, or something along those lines.
It probably comes down to the concern raised principle, because they're measured not just for quantity but quality.
But quality, yeah. I mean, quality matters.
I mean, yes, quality matters. For those who aren't familiar, concern rays are a very real thing that emanate from guy sports fans watching their game based on how much they care about whether or not their team succeeds. And they go to the actual site of the event where they're measured for not just quantity, but quality. And as every guy fan must believe, this is what wins sporting events.
Right. And it actually emanates from particular spots on the actual field. I mean, it's a very delicate system.
This is a truly scientific principle we're talking about here.
Yeah. But what we're talking about specifically right now is God's involvement. How much, like, not just the concern, but the actual prayers. Does God
Right.
answer said prayers? And I think God does care about the things that we care about because he cares about us. When when your son comes up to you and asks you desperately, can you please help me win this video game, and you just say no because it's not important to you, you might not be doing parenting right. You might be, it depends on the circumstance, but a lot of times you have to sit down and you have to play with your kid, not because you want to, but because he wants you and you need to be with him or her. And that's part of being a parent.
Yes, Martin. Roughly half of all children are in fact female.
Part of the hard work of being a parent is doing the stuff that the kid wants to do.
Especially when it's the stuff the kid wants to do that you really don't care about as far as the activity. I mean, I'm not into soccer, and Ellie sometimes asks me to come play soccer with her, and I'll try. I don't leap off the bench the way I do when she asks me if I want to play catch with a baseball, because I also enjoy that. And she's asked me a couple of times recently because she's gotten very into singing, and she's in her school choir. She's been accepted into the district honor choir, and she says, "How come you always ask about that?" I said, "Well, because I used to do that. So it's cool for me to see you loving something I used to love to do."
Yeah.
There's a connection there. We share this. I played one season of soccer. I was bad at it, and I went back to Little League, where I was less bad at. But I think sometimes God will also, not necessarily, I've never actually prayed for a baseball game. I truly haven't. But you may remember.
For me, it almost feels like cheating.
Yeah. Now, you may remember that back in my 20s, I used to occasionally set aside time to watch a baseball game with God or whatever sport it was. And it would just be me at home alone with the TV praying, but it wasn't your traditional requests and praise. It was just literally an ongoing conversation, usually about baseball, with God. And here's the cool thing. I only did it about a half a dozen times, but the Mets won every single game I did that for. And there was this little male part of my brain that wanted to do that every game, but I realized that would be cheating, and also would miss the purpose of doing that. The purpose was I want to watch a game with my father, not just like when my dad was in town over Christmas and Syracuse was playing in a bowl game, and or the last time he visited, I think it was basketball season. I'm like, hey, there's a game on. Let's plan to watch it together. Just because of something we used to do together all the time when I lived in the same house as him. That was something we enjoyed doing together. So it was something I wanted to do again since we were going to be in the same place. So I guess we've kind of answered this second question. But we're going to go through it anyway. Did God answer Roger's prayer?
Yeah. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to make a new point, though. God actually has different ways in which he can answer. Sometimes we have this understanding of prayer that if the answer isn't yes, then the prayer isn't answered.
Right.
And yes, God clearly answered the prayer. Like, know that God answered the prayer the moment Al shows up. Because when Doc Brown shows up at a baseball game to watch it with you, you know that God has answered a prayer.
True.
And yeah,
hasn't answered that one for me yet.
No, but the thing is that his answer wasn't a yes. nor was it a no. It was a much more complicated answer of, I'm going to give you the thing that you want, but not in the way that you want it. It's a much more complicated answer, but it's clearly an answer. And I think in that sense, the movie actually does a very good job at presenting the way the prayer works. And not every prayer is answered this blatantly. To most prayers,
It's not always yes or no. Sometimes it's I have better.
sometimes it's I have better. Sometimes it's not yet. So sometimes it's going to depend on a certain couple of things that you have to do first. So it might be a yes or it might be a no based off of these contingent things. So it's not actually a simple yes or no answer all the time anyway. And in this case, it's not a simple yes or no. It's I'm going to give you the thing that you want, but not the way that you want it. And
right.
And I'm going to
and
bless
he ends
everyone
up,
around you.
Yeah. And he ends up, hopefully we're led to believe, in a better situation than if he got what he thought he wanted. I mean, his
Certainly.
dad clearly was a lousy dad if he was in foster care. Again, you don't end up getting your kids taken away if you.
And I am certain that particular father will eventually return in his life seeking some kind of forgiveness, because the entire reason why he walks away is because he's mourning his wife, which that's not an excuse, but he's not like, they don't make him the worst father ever. They make him a broken man, not a evil man, which
I suppose one can lead to the other sometimes.
yeah, but maybe that's just my headcanon. But at the same time, he abandoned his son when his son needed him most. So he's not getting that much compassion.
He doesn't get credit for that.
Right. But I do think that certainly could eventually happen, and I do believe in mercy, and I do believe in forgiveness. Even for horrible things like abandoning your child.
And he made the decision to sign over his parental rights. I mean, what? Let me give you an extensive list, a complete list of all the reasons that I would not choose, but all the reasons why I would ever not be there as a full-time parent for my children. Ready? I'm dead. That's the whole list.
The only other one I can imagine is if I ever get addicted to painkillers because of some accident I get in and it destroys my ability to take care of them. So thus I'm protecting them from me. But I can't imagine that really happening either, because I can't either about it. Yeah, but it'll necessarily be for their benefit and not for my own. And he is clearly a selfish man. But yeah.
But still, something happened along the way where he got his kid taken away from him too.
Yeah. And I think if his wife didn't die, he would have been there with his family.
Maybe. You've got a much more thorough headcanon.
Well, based off of the way that he talked about things, I think that he loved her more than he loved him. I think he loved his wife more than he loved his son. Which I really don't want to defend the guy.
More is the wrong word. Yes, more is the wrong word. Should you love your wife differently than you love your children? Of course.
Yeah, you should. The love for your family should be somewhat equal. And you should prioritize your wife over your children, but that's because that's what your children need. But I think he, honest to goodness, loved his wife significantly more than he loved his son.
Very possible.
That's not healthy.
Okay. So here's my next question is, how often in your experience, and as a pastor, you probably talk to more people in this situation, how often in your experience does God answer prayers in a way that's different than what you expected?
I'm going to say that out of, like, let's say 10 times, 0.1 Now, 0.01% of the time does he actually answer it the way you expect. It's
Yep.
it's more often than not.
And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and name the biggest example, most prominent example in the history of mankind that God did that. Because if you go back and look at what were first century Jews expecting in the Messiah, and they pretty much all they caught were the kingly promises, and not the suffering servant promises. And to this day, there are Jews that will argue that Jesus couldn't have been the Messiah because he didn't fulfill the kingly promises, and they completely missed the suffering servant promise.
They didn't completely miss it. So you had the Messiah ben Joseph trajectory that happened at the time, that was developing at that time and developed into the rabbinic era, and you also had the priestly motif of the Messiah that was working, and so you had different perspectives. But it is true that the most popular by far was the idea of the returning king who will come and rule over Judah and make all of Judah's enemies bow down at their feet. That was the number one popular vision that was going on at the time. So it's not that they completely missed the other stuff, but it was de-emphasized because it wasn't their main desire.
And without Rome in place and ruling over Judea, Christianity couldn't have spread the way it did.
No.
Without the roads, without the communication. I mean, even
of course not the roads. I mean, like, why even
right,
bring it up?
Of course, the roads go without saying.
Yeah, naturally.
Right. They did bring peace.
They did.
But I mean, there was a common claim going around from the political left trying to tell Christians we should be fine with everyone illegally immigrating to our country and just we should all pay for them by saying, well, Jesus was a refugee and Jesus was an immigrant. No, he wasn't. He was not an immigrant. Egypt was a province of Rome.
Yeah.
That was that's like saying I immigrated from New York to South Carolina.
Yeah, pretty much. And then immigrated back to New York.
No, not happening.
Well, yeah, I know, but that's the thing. Jesus returned. He returned
right.
to Galilee. So it's but that's really neither here nor there because that's not relevant.
No, it's just as dumb as asking a Puerto Rican for their green card. They don't need one.
Yeah, no, because they're Americans. Yeah.
Yep. So, so in your experience, like, what have you seen where God answered prayers differently?
Some examples?
Sure, if you can share them.
That's actually the hard bit. I have one example that pops up immediately, and there's another example, but yeah.
Well, here's a good one that you saw up close and personal. If God answered a prayer that I was praying 15 years ago, my children wouldn't exist.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But he did restore you to marriage. Not to your first marriage, but he did restore you to marriage.
He did indeed. And that is, hey, I've got better for you. And I mean, just the fact that I have children is definitely that, because I think, the first one probably honestly is better off not having kids. And I mean that in all kindness. I don't think she wanted them. I think there was a this is what you're supposed to do attitude, but I don't think so. And that would have.
This episode of Hey a Movie is brought to you by Cows, your #1 source for beef, milk, and something to point out to your children during road trips. Cows are another fine product of Yahweh Triunity.
Affected my decision before I married her in the first place, but I didn't think that way. And, for me, that was a big, big part of what I wanted in life was to be a dad.
right? And if you had kids when she left you, things would have been a lot worse. Things would have been a lot worse.
That's true too. But let's not go into that story.
I will say that I've never ended up where I expected to when I was praying for a church. The current church that I'm at, I inherited from my father-in-law, and I didn't want to pastor here because it was my father-in-law's. This is my first church, but this is my second church. But I didn't want to pastor here precisely because it was my father-in-law's church. I prayed about it, and God seemed to say, "Yes, I want you here." And then, lo and behold, a couple of months after I become pastor, this big blow up happens that if someone who didn't already know the people involved were here, they would have been overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. And that's the important thing to remember is, however God knows the future, and I have my own set of theories, and there are lots of, but He does know what He's doing.
Yeah, He does.
And God knows what He's doing, and He somehow manages to get you where you're supposed to be, even when you fight Him kicking and screaming.
And He doesn't need to control our thoughts to do it. He doesn't have to.
The following segment of Hey a Movie includes the belief that God does not need to meticulously control man's thoughts and actions to be sovereign, that in fact God does not want to have meticulous control over man's thoughts and actions. Calvinist discretion advised.
There are some times when I think He does do that, especially for kings and princes, but generally He doesn't, because He doesn't have to.
And even then, when He's doing it, that's overwhelming Him. That's overwhelming their will.
Yeah.
It's not. Look, I don't care how much my 3-year-old doesn't want to go somewhere. Eventually, once I catch him, he's going.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with me changing what he wants. It has to do with the fact that I am, in fact, bigger than he is.
And just because he whines and doesn't mean you're not still sovereign over his life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But I also get to decide whether or not I'm going to exercise that at any given point. Sometimes I decide this thing I want you to do is not that important that I'm willing to give. It's not critical that
it's okay if you choose what color socks you're wearing today. That's fine.
I decide this thing I want you to do is not that important that I'm willing to give. It's not critical that
it's okay if you choose what color socks you're wearing today. That's fine.
I'm not going to fight you if you want to wear 2 different color socks.
Yeah.
That's just not a battle worth having. I remember my mom telling she had shared this with somebody who was very upset about their teenager wanting to dye their hair a funny color, like purple or something.
Yeah.
And my mom shared with me that her advice was, it's not a tattoo. It's not a piercing that will never go away. It's not a permanent thing. It's hair. And, her attitude on that level of things was always like, if you want to make this stupid decision, it's not irreversible. Go ahead and make the mistake. If that's your rebellion, if that's your act of teenager rebellion, is that you're going to dye your hair a funny color, then I'm glad that's your act of teenage rebellion. And I have certainly seen people who, I remember meeting people in college, and why I'm so reticent of the idea of homeschooling and all these things where Christian parents choose to do. People choose to homeschool for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But there are certain people who are kept away from the world so tightly by their parents, and then they go to college where they're 100% on their own, and they've never had anything but a bubble around them, and they go off the deep end.
Now, I'm a fairly big fan of homeschooling, but I do think that every household and every child is different. And for some, like being in a public, like my kids were in a public school. I tried homeschooling, but there were some
with me that she
deficiencies, some things that got in the way of it.
After 4th grade math, you couldn't keep up.
Yeah, that was the problem. Actually, it had much more to do with phys ed.
You never could get that rope to stay up so they could climb it, could you?
No. I tried. You know, it's just didn't work. Anyway.
But it may not be homeschooling. But the point is that kids need to, as they get older, there needs to be some freedom to make dumb decisions and deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
Huh?
There usually are homeschool groups though that allow for.
There are. My nieces are, well, right now only my oldest niece is being homeschooled. Her sister will be when she's old enough. And they're very active in those kinds of groups. More what I'm saying though is there has to be a little bit of room for kids to screw up and deal with consequences in a small way. Because eventually they're going to be on their own. And if you keep the reins on too tight, then they're just going to do everything you weren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I'll give you an example from my childhood. My mother, when I was an older teenager, you know, would say, look, you have to be in the house. You can't be out with your friends. If you want to stay up late on a weekend night, cool. You know, if you're up late on Saturday, just know I'm shaking you because you agreed to sing in the choir at church and you're going. And sometimes I dealt with the consequences of being tired at church. But that's the kind of small things that you kind of have to let your kids make those mistakes and deal with the consequences. And then I went away to college and I had some familiarity with what was going on in the world. And what did I do? I stayed up late in your suite playing Nintendo, trying to figure. Well, we all tried desperately
that was
to
the
figure
Super
out.
Nintendo. That was the Super Nintendo.
There was a Nintendo too, because I remember you being ridiculously good at Tecmo Super Bowl for some reason. And then
that was on the Super Nintendo.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember you were ridiculously good at that. And then I had an old Sega that I hooked up and tried to get you to play Madden, and you were terrible at it. Like early Madden.
Yeah, because I have no knowledge of actual football. I just learned how to play Tecmo.
Right. Because the defense is not guessing which of these 8 plays are they going to run.
Yeah. So I could do that.
Yeah, if you guess exactly the right play, then your opponent loses yards. If you successfully guessed run versus pass, they'd only get a short gain.
Yeah. So
I think is what it was.
Anyway, moving back to the topic at hand.
The following segment of Hey a Movie includes the belief that God does not need to meticulously control man's thoughts and actions to be sovereign, that in fact God does not want to have meticulous control over man's thoughts and actions. Calvinist discretion advised.
Yes.
The reason why we're talking about all of this has to do with the God's sovereignty, the way in which He is ruling over us, and how He doesn't give us freedom because we have the right to freedom. He gives us freedom because He created us to be free will creatures, because He sees us as children. He doesn't see us as pets, and He doesn't see us as dolls. We are His children, and He wants us to grow, and He wants us to make independent choices and to become wise. That's something that He wants for us.
Yes. And it begs the question, and this is a point I raise to Calvinists all the time when they're saying, well, you don't think God's sovereign. Really? I think you have a very, very low view of God that He would want. Why would God want to create essentially sentient robots to live out a play that He scripted for what? His entertainment?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Well, I was like that article about action figures. Do you remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The one you
because
wrote?
like yeah, because it was about like okay, like when I was a boy, I had He-Man fight Skeletor, usually to um save my sister's Barbie doll. And at the end of the day, like Skeletor will fall off of the shelf and to his doom. And have I done something wrong with the way that I treated Skeletor because I'm acting out my sense of justice, right? Like I have made Skeletor do something unjust so that I could express my sense of justice through He-Man. That was precisely what I was doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's exactly what Calvinists say that God does. The problem with that is that if I'm doing that with actual um, beings who I care about and love for, like if it like that's okay because Skeletor is a toy.
Yeah,
And at the end,
Skeletor's plastic.
right, and both Skeletor and the He-Man, both of those toys are currently at some landfill, who knows where. They both have the same eventual fate because they're toys. They're not
Right.
real. And it kind of makes God, in my mind, into a child, which
At last, I have you in my clutches to have my way with you the way I want to. No, leave me alone. No, you are mine. Not so fast, Helmet. No, you are going to die. Oh. Hey, what'd you do to my friend? The same thing I'm going to do to you, big boy. Oh, and you too. Oh. Now we are alone.
Oh, no, I hate you, leave me alone.
Yes, I find you strange and attractive. Of course you do. Leave me alone. No, kiss me.
No, yes, no.
No.
Yes, no, yes. I love you.
Lord Helmet, what? You need it on the bridge, sir. Knock on my door. Knock next time. Yes, sir. Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good.
God. They're uncomfortable. I see God as being a father, not as being a kid playing with toys. And I actually think the toy analogy is a better analogy than the robot analogy.
Well, the reason I use the robot analogy is, me saying one of my life goals and priorities was to be a father. I would not have been equally satisfied in the least if I ended up with the robot Paulie got for his birthday at the beginning of Rocky IV. Paulie was fine with it because Paulie, as a character, is a narcissist. Paulie's a narcissist. Let's be honest. That he's clinically a narcissist, and he programmed the robot to tell him that she, the female robot, loved him. Like, whoopee-doo.
Thanks, hon.
You're welcome.
It's a nice song.
It's my favorite. You're the greatest. See you, sport.
See you.
Paulie, who taught her to talk like that?
She loves me.
And I also had a similar, like I wrote another article about playing with dolls as opposed to action figures and how little girls have these dolls that they love, but no adult woman still has that doll. All right, some of them still have the doll, but they don't still love that doll the way that they did when they were a child. Because
no. The only time I've seen an adult woman playing with a doll, there was also a child who was part of the game.
Yeah.
And and I remember Ellie, my oldest daughter, was going through a doll phase at the same time when her brother was born. And she's like, "Daddy, come play dolls with me. Why are you so boring at playing with dolls?" I said, "Honey, this isn't really a game for me. Like, I can go do the real thing with your brother. This is not fun. Like, how about another game? How about I go to a job that I only, occasionally enjoy because I need to make money? Let's play that game. Like, let's play go cut the grass. Like, this is my life. This is not
A lot of kids like that game for some reason. I don't entirely understand that.
Go cut the grass.
Well, you have those toy lawnmowers. Ever seen those?
Okay, full disclosure, I enjoy mowing the lawn, but that's because A, I'm accomplishing something, and B, I can shut my brain off while doing it.
Yeah.
That's a whole different, that's something else entirely.
Right.
But yeah,
Anyway.
why would God want that? And
Yeah.
and the typical Calvinist answer, oh, it's for his glory. To who?
Is it? Yeah.
Is he sitting around the deity's lounge bragging to Odin and Zeus? No, because Odin and Zeus are figments of man's imagination.
Yeah.
And if any being in the history of all life ever in the universe is self-actualized, it's God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He doesn't.
I mean, God does care about his glory, but what that means is that he cares about his reputation on earth.
I
think
firmly
actually,
believe,
yeah, I think the reputation of his character is more important to him than the reputation of his power. So I think that both
and I
matter
think the
to him.
reason, well, I think the reason God cares. This is going to be the second episode in a row I bring up Rahab. I think, but maybe it wasn't last week. Maybe it was Blues Brothers. I don't know, but the reason I think God cares about his reputation is so he can reach more people. More of his children are out there, and he wants to love them. The signs and wonders done in Egypt, yes, God had a right to judge, and there was valid reason for judgment. But also, 40 years later, somebody who probably hadn't been born yet, and however far away, had heard about it. And therefore trusted in Yahweh and was saved because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about I need everyone to know I'm awesome, because that's what the gods humans made up acted like. That's what Zeus and Thor and all those acted like.
Yeah, and we always have this tendency to take God and try to make him look more like us. And quite frankly, we do the same thing with the angels too. We try to take the angels and make them look more like us, which then begs the question: this movie, how well does it do that? Does it represent angels well, or does it make angels a mere gimmick? I mean, how do you think that it does that?
The movie, first of all, visually, I mean, descriptions we have of angels in the Bible are, I mean, there are times when angels have taken on the appearance of people.
Mm-hmm.
When
at
the
least
angels
two
rescued,
occasions I can think of right now where the people involved couldn't even tell that it was not a human. That was Samson's parents thought they were dealing with a human. Abraham and Sarah thought they were dealing with human beings. And
so
I think
did
there's other
Lot.
instances too.
So did the
Lot. Yeah. Well,
and so did the women.
That's kind of the same instance. But yeah.
And the women and the first witnesses at the empty tomb.
They do describe him as a man, yes. I think they can tell he was more than a man.
And then
there are lots of instances where angels are described as having a humanoid appearance.
But then there's also several descriptions in the Old Testament where angels look like I don't know what.
Yeah.
And so and the thing is some of those passages may or may not be literal descriptions. They may be.
To be honest, I think angels probably look a lot more like Al than they look like the angels that you see show up in the field where they have the wings and everything.
Yeah, because that's possible.
Because when they're manifesting for the purpose of our eyes to perceive them. They're not physical beings. So when you ask the question, what do angels look like? The answer is no. They are.
And just going to take a brief aside here, by the way, because whoever wrote this movie has zero clue of the rules of baseball. First of all, there's no way.
Yeah.
I looked this up. Even in 1994, or really at any point, since there was such a thing as a disabled list or a whatever it is now, there is no way that a player can go from the disabled list to starting a game in 5 minutes. It's literally not possible. First of all,
confirmed.
first of all, based on the current rules and the rules going back until at least the 60s, when the 60-man roster or the 60-day disabled list was created, part of the reason for the 60-day disabled list is so that you can take them off of the 40-man roster of players who are active for immediate call-up. So there are players in the minor leagues who are on the 40-man roster, and there's other things that does. It protects them from being from the Rule 5 draft. I won't go into all that. But it also means if you're on the 40-man roster, you can be instantly activated to the big league club.
Yeah.
And when a player who is injured, a major league player who is injured for an extended period of time and moved to the 60-day DL comes off that, they also have to remove someone from the 40-man roster to make room, and remove somebody and send someone. Someone has to come off the active roster who's up with the big club now.
The point here is that just because God does a miracle, it doesn't mean that the laws of men are going to recognize that miracle as having happened. In Jesus's day, what does he tell? What does he tell the men that he heals? He says, "Go." This is the man with leprosy, and also the group of men, which I think also have leprosy. He said, "Go to the priests and have them confirm that you are healed, and then bring a sacrifice to the temple and praise God." He doesn't say, "Okay, you're healed. Now just go about your life as if you were never sick." Like, no. There's a process here. Go through the process, and the same thing would naturally happen with the laws of baseball. You're just like, okay, he's healed now, but that has to be confirmed by the staff. Because if the staff let every baseball player who said that he felt okay to play in the game, then like every baseball player would. They're not soccer players. Baseball players don't mind playing hurt. And
they do it less now than they did when they would lose when they didn't get paid when they were injured. But yes.
My favorite story of Mickey Mantle is when he hit a ball out of the park one-handed because he had hurt his wrist while fielding. And then he hits the ball out of the park, jogs around the bases, and then walks out of the game. And this is what players do. They're there to play.
True.
And
they
will lie to keep playing.
Yep. And the other baseball moment that never would have passed muster was they were playing Hippie Shake, and they're like, Al's on the field hacky sacking the baseball, and they're just bouncing around. And then there's like, you see the errors on the scoreboard, and it's just flying up like a ticker. There's no way that play would have gone up. I mean, they even showed the umps inspecting the ball, trying to figure out what happened. Everything else from somebody other than Roger, who's not seeing the Angels' perspective, okay, a guy hit a home run, a guy made a spectacular catch. Even when the one scene where Al pulls the foul pole.
Yeah, okay, the wind just took it somehow. Sure.
Or they just perceived it as it was a fair ball.
Yeah, but it's like if I were those umps and I saw that ball doing what it was doing, and then I picked it up and I couldn't find anything wrong with it, my thought process is, I don't know what's wrong with this ball, but someone was cheating. The play doesn't count, and then I'll walk off. It's just like I don't know how you're cheating, but I know you're cheating. And I don't have to know how you're cheating to call it a cheat. That's like I'm not obliged to do that. So yeah,
exactly. And you did umpire for Little League in your younger years, so you actually have some view of that.
It was so difficult calling girls out. These cute, adorable girls looking up at me, going, "Wait, they're on a strike," and I have to go, "Yes, it's a strike, and you're out." And it was just tore my heart up. I can't do it again. But
right. So there also, is one other.
My dad, he umpired for 7 or 8 years.
Wow, that doesn't surprise me.
No, and To the point where anyway, but he loved it. He absolutely loved it, and it began happening that while we were watching a baseball game, instead of commenting on the players, he was commenting on how well an umpire got into position. And it was just like, Dad, I'm watching the Yankees. I'm not watching the umps. And it's just,
Oh
but
wow.
yeah, that's absolutely the way that he would have
Also
called
not
it.
surprising.
If he saw that ball dancing all over the place, he would go, I don't know what's going on with this ball, but that's not a fair ball. That's some shenanigans.
Yeah,
is happening
something's
here.
wrong.
Yeah.
So back to your initial question, there is one other misrepresentation of angels in the movie, and it's at the end where Al tells Roger that Mel is going to die soon from cancer or from whatever because he smoked for years. But he says that I just said Mel is going to be one of them soon. So they're saying when he dies, he's going to become an angel. No, he's not.
Yeah. No, he's
Angels
not.
are a
No.
different created order than humans. Dead humans don't become angels.
No. Technically speaking, angel is a job, not a. It's not a taxonomy. It's not taxonomy. So the word malach means a messenger, and the word angelos, which I always mispronounce, I'm sure I did again, also means messenger. There's actually a reason why the word angel is in evangelism. It's because evangelism is the good message, and a angel is a messenger. It has the same root. And but that's what angels are. They're messengers, and but they're not humans. They're
No.
not human souls. They're not human.
And they never
spirits.
were.
No, there are certain kinds of angelic, there's certain kinds of spiritual beings. There's actually lots of different kinds. You have cherubim, you have seraphim, you have all these other kinds of things.
And that's a more specific job.
Yeah, well, and those are actually taxonomical. But angel is they usually look human, because they're messengers and they don't want to freak people out. Meanwhile, a seraph would generally look kind of like a snake, I think, and cherubs would look like kind of like a chimera kind of a thing. But the messengers usually look human because let's not scare people, let's not freak them out, and then they'll be freaked out anyway because you could feel the spiritual power raining off of them, and there's often some shining involved, but not always.
Yes. Right. So, but well, aside from that, though, I mean, the idea of God using angels in this way to answer Roger's deepest prayer, and it was a good thing to pray for. You know, I want a family. That's something a child should have. You know, and the fact that God used baseball to do that, used it to change around George Knox as a person to the point where he became a worthy father. Right. Yeah. And even though Roger didn't ask for it, he also got JP a family. So not only did he end up with a dad, he also got a brother that was his best friend.
Yeah.
Which
that
is
basically
which
already
is
was his brother. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. But we don't know how long they knew each other because Maggie did say that she only had a license for short-term care. So she wasn't a long-term foster parent.
They clearly grew close really quick. Yeah.
Yes. So they said the other boy, whose name Miguel, that he was there 7 months, and that was a long time before he got placed with a.
That's a good point.
So, okay. Do you have anything else on the angels or on the spiritual?
Absolutely. So, two things. Number one, a point against it, I think, is also how gimmicky the angels are. The way in which they play it a lot for comedy. They play it, angels are spiritual wars happening, and it's not a game.
Right.
I mean, I do absolutely believe that in heaven angels play baseball because why wouldn't they? I have no problem with that. Like, of course they play baseball. What else do you think they're playing?
Yeah.
And,
You know the
they're
old
not playing
joke, right?
curling. What?
Right. You know the old joke about the old friends, and they had an agreement that whoever died first, they'd ask God permission to come back and tell them if there was baseball in heaven.
Go on.
All right. So Bob and Joe, we'll call them, lifelong friends, love baseball. They made a pact that whoever died first would ask God permission, and if they got permission, they'd come back and tell the still living friend whether or not there was baseball in heaven. Well, Joe dies, and turns out God was willing to grant his request. So Joe comes back and says, Bob, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that there is baseball in heaven. And Bob says, well, what's the bad news? You're scheduled to pitch on Friday.
Yeah. Told me that before. I had forgotten it. But yeah,
I'm sure I had.
That's good. Yeah.
So go on.
But I think the big thing that I want to talk about, and I think this is this has become more important as I've thought about it, and that is, who is the expert on angels in the movie? And the answer to that is Maggie, who is not a pastor and not a theologian. Any representations of the church in the entire film. It's a movie about angels, and you don't see a single church, and you don't see a single religious leader, and you don't see a single person who is openly Christian. Not one.
Right.
Which is phenomenal. Now, Maggie says that she believes in angels, but she has a hippy-dippy way of talking about it, which is
it is California.
It is California, sure, but she has two speeches. And in the first speech, she basically says, yeah, I think I believe in angels. I hadn't thought about it before, but I believe in, miracles and love and all of this other great stuff. So therefore, sure, I believe in angels. And then at the end, when she defends Knox at the press conference, and she stands up and she goes like, look, you're all laughing at this whole angel thing, and yet you don't mind when someone prays before a baseball game. You don't mind when someone thanks God after a good play, but you do mind if someone believes that angels show up. I mean, that's incredibly hypocritical. You're allowed to believe in God, but you're not allowed to believe in angels. I thought they were on the same team. Which
that was a great line.
Great line, and it's the most probably the only time God's mentioned, I think. I think he's mentioned in the prayer. He's mentioned
when in the prayer too.
Yeah, but there is clearly there's a bigger emphasis on angels than on God. She even scolds them for not believing in angels as if that's the most important thing. No, the most important thing is to believe in the Son. That is the most important thing. And there is an issue that I have that the church isn't in the film. The only reason why I'm not 100% bothered by it is because it does make sense that when a child has a question about God, who does the child go to? Does a child go to this pastor? No. Does a child go to a theologian? No. Well, because yours
do.
But children go to their parents. And in this case, Maggie was a good enough foster mother that when Roger had a theological question, he went to a legitimate mother figure, which great on her. But why didn't she go to a pastor? So it's absolutely good and right that Roger goes to Maggie with the question. That is correct. And Maggie gives the best answer she can in the moment. That is correct. But why did she think that her general opinion was good enough to answer this boy's question? You have a responsibility as a parent that when you're asked a hard question by your children, to go and look it up and find out what the right answer is. Why does she not go to a pastor or a priest or like anyone? She just trusts in her own previous understanding, and she does better than everybody else. I don't want to harp on her too much, but it does bother me that God is barely in the film and the church isn't in the film at all.
Right.
And there's something about that strikes me as
lacking.
Yeah. It's trying to think of an analogy. It's
like trying to make cake without flour.
Yeah. That's not quite the analogy that I want. Like trying to tell a story about fleas without referencing dogs. It's like it's like you get the context wrong. It's like you're telling a story that works within a particular that's about a context, and then you never bother having the context be there. So it's more like making a cake without plates and forks and a table. That's the real problem. I mean, God would be the
I've
flour.
eaten cake without those things.
Yeah, but it's not ideal.
That's true. And I'm a slob.
This is true.
No, I think you have a valid point there. And you can't talk.
I can.
Listen, viewers, if you ever have to eat chicken wings with Martin, you should probably do it on an empty stomach, because he kind of looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex devouring a mouse. It's disturbing. Keeps me up at night, I'll be honest.
To be fair, that's why chicken wings are supposed to be eaten.
I've eaten chicken wings with lots of people and, never felt like it was a T-Rex eating a mouse. Anyway.
At least it doesn't
help that your arms are short.
That's the important thing.
What's that?
At least it don't look like Denethor eating a tomato. That would be bad.
That would be bad. And you know what? The T-Rex thing is partially because your arms are short. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm like this. I can't reach anything. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think we've come to that point in our episode here where we're going to give our 2 ratings. So, first of all, Martin, how do you rate Angels in the Outfield as a movie?
As a movie, it's fun, family movie. Not a lot of substance. The jokes are funny. I give it a 2. It's not a great movie. As an adult, to be honest, it's a little hard to watch. But with kids in the room, it's a lot of fun.
I enjoyed my rewatch of this movie because, unlike the previous movies, I actually had to rewatch it to refamiliarize myself. If I were to compare it to a meal, and I think about the best meals I've ever eaten, Shawshank last week was like the best steak dinner. It's good. Angels in the Outfield, even as an adult watching it without kids, it was like having a Big Mac. I like Big Macs, and at the end of the day, if I eat a Big Mac, I feel full. It tastes good. I didn't pay too much for it. Yeah. Okay. It's not as good as a perfect porterhouse with, grilled to perfection, perfect medium rare, and now I'm hungry. But it was for what but I also don't go into get a Big Mac expecting that perfect steak experience. So I knew what it was. I knew it was just going to be a light, enjoyable film, and it lived up to the expectations. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3.
I think if the Angels were less gimmicky, I would have given it a 3. Yeah.
Okay, so let's now go to the second rating, which is biblical accuracy. So as far as lining up with spiritual truth, where would you put this movie?
So 3 categories here: representation of angels, representation of prayer, and also the absence of the church. Are the 3
so
things
you're going to have to give
this
me an overall rating, though, because I don't have enough room on the screen to put.
I know. I'm just explaining what my rating is. So in terms of the prayer, I think it full marks. I think it actually demonstrates prayer very, very good, very well, I should say. And in terms of the representation of angels, again, it's gimmicky. I don't think it represents the angels well, but it doesn't represent them poorly. So just middle of the road. But the absence of God and the absence of church in the film decontextualizes angels in a way that I don't think is appropriate. So I'm going to end up 2.5.
Okay.
I think I'm going to end up saying.
My viewing, I kind of focus more on the prayer than anything else, and the
Which
fact
is the thing I
that
gave it full
God,
marks for. Yeah.
right. I mean, the way God used a child's prayer, used something as eternally trivial as baseball to change that many lives. I thought it did a pretty good job. Martin's right. It poorly represented angels, and it didn't really bring in the church at all. It didn't mention Christ at all. It was just kind of general theism. But it was, as Martin pointed out, definitely an Abrahamic view of God. I'm going to give it a little better marks than you did, I think. I'm going to go ahead and give it 3 stars because there's enough in it. Yeah, I'm going to give it 3 for biblical accuracy, if only because if you were watching this movie with your children, it gives you a good launch pad to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
It's a good launch pad to fill in the gaps. There are great lessons you can teach from it about how God can use things that seem silly to us to answer prayer. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it 3 stars on biblical accuracy. And that just about wraps us up for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to our review of 1994's Angels in the Outfield. Until next time, I'm Chris Bastido.
And I'm Martin Glenn.
Thanks for tuning in to Hey a Movie.
There'll be mystery and catastrophe, but it's all in fun. You pay no money, wait and see. Hey a Movie.